What is up, everybody? My name is Sean Sheehan, and this is the Sheehan Show for Sherdog.com. And on today's episode, I'm going to look back at last week in the world of mixed martial arts and, you know what, combat sports, and pick out a few things that I thought kind of stood out in our mad world. And just discuss them a little bit. And when I say combat sports, I mean combat sports, because the first thing I want to talk about here is the Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Rodtang bout that went down over in one championship on their 1X card, which was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining, to be honest. And I'll get straight into it, because the card in general, it's not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm not the biggest kickboxing or grappling fan in the world. Now, I'd be more of a grappling fan than I would be a kickboxing fan by themselves. In MMA, maybe a little bit different, but I'm just not a fan of kickboxing. I never really have been. I loved boxing back in the day, and I loved MMA, obviously, for the last good few years. But I don't know, the old kickboxing, it felt to me, and I might be wrong, and loads of people probably disagree with me, but like, a hole in the middle that didn't need to be filled. And now there's probably Muay Thai fans and kickboxing fans out there that absolutely hate me and you know, never watch anything I do again because of that. But I don't make that opinion known too often. I don't talk about it too often, so you could say subscribe for another while. But anyway, the John Wayne Parr and Edward Feilang fight that I watched, that was very, very good, and some of the other fights before that as well were very good. But the Demetrius Johnson fight, by itself, I just really enjoy that, because what we had there, right, was a guy who's done it all in the game in Demetrius Johnson. Now, he's headlined the top of cards, he's been a champion in the UFC, he's been, you know, one of the longest running champions in the history of the UFC. He didn't feel appreciated, so he kind of, he left as part of the Ben Askren trade. Now, I put up a thing the other day on Twitter about this Ben Askren trade, and look, a lot of people take your point wrong when you put something up on Twitter, and I understand that. And my point was, look, they traded Ben Askren, a guy who ended up getting knocked out by a TikToker, for Demetrius Johnson. In my opinion, the greatest fighter in the history of the sport. If you disagree with that, you can't disagree with his top 10, I don't think you can disagree with top 5, but anyway, that's my opinion. Without a shadow of a doubt, skill-wise, even opponent-wise, I think people discounted his opponents because they didn't know who they were for a lot of years, and I think his opponents actually weren't as bad as people make out. But anyway, we leave that there for a second. He's a guy who's done all of that, right? And, okay, on the trades, I went on a tangent, and then I went back, but I'll finish up the tangent. On the trade, like, my point there, that you trade away Demetrius Johnson if you're the UFC, you are the premier fighting league in the world, right? And your job is to get the best fighters in the world and obviously earn a lot of money along the way, and, it's prize fighting and all of that. But if you can't be a prize fighting organization and have the best fighter in the world as one of your top fighters, and if you can't promote him, then you're not doing that job right. That is as simple as I can put it. If you can't, and I know some guys don't help themselves, and look, Demetrius Johnson, is he one of those guys? Probably is. As much as I love him, as much as I respect his ability, he probably is one of those guys. But it should not have mattered. They should have been able to do it anyway. And that, to me, is a very bad sign for the UFC, and says a lot about how kind of useless the UFC are at promoting unless someone hands it to them. Like my friend over in the Severe May podcast, Graham, is always talking about how, if you think about who have become big stars in the UFC over the last few years, they've mostly done it by themselves, and then obviously the UFC see that and they get behind them. There's no one that the UFC kind of pick out, say we're going to promote, and then they become a top fighter. Like, they tried it with Sage Northcutt, they tried it with Paige Van Zandt, they're probably trying it now probably a little bit with Sean O'Malley, and let's see if it works, But McGregor, he very much, he had the documentary going when he was in Cage Warriors. He was all over the place doing interviews. He made himself a star. Even Masvidal, I think, and, all of that. The fact that they couldn't make Demetrius Johnson a star, and not even necessarily a star, but someone that they wanted to keep on the roster in a division that they wanted to keep, is, to me, a travesty. But anyway, that was a big, and Ben Askren then on the other side of it, to me, a very average fighter who probably did as well as he ever could have in MMA, and did a great job, made money out in 1FC, and won the Bellator title and everything like that. But at one stage there was people comparing him to GSP, which just ludicrous. But anyway, on this Demetrius Johnson long fight, and there's like a 5-minute tangent for you anyway. But anyway, that's what this is about. We're having a bit of fun here. I really loved it. I really, really loved it because you have a guy in Demetrius, as I said earlier on, he's proven everything, done it all. And he wants to have a little bit of fun. Like, I equate it to, like David Beckham going out to America playing for a few years, or, we see seniors tours here in golf and in snooker and different things. People who've done it all, but still love the game and want to keep it going and want to do a little bit more. Now, Demetrius Johnson isn't on the seniors tour or anything like that. He was going against Rodtang, was an absolute killer, so he wasn't taking it easy or anything like that. But he was trying something else, He said afterwards he's 35 years of age, and he also said that he wasn't willing to go in there just take it easy against against Rodtang. Did I call him Foilong earlier on? Sorry, I'm mixing them all up. But anyway, all these fighters fall under. I actually have my Cage Warriors one to do after this, and I have 2 Shelley brothers, and I have a Sheehan, and I'm mixing everyone up. But anyway, Demetrius, I respect that. Like, it's old school MMA as well, and I feel like he is kind of an old school guy. Go in there, have his fight, be as good as he possibly can be in preparation, and turn into like a fantastic fighter, while also kind of recognizing as well that he will do this sort of thing and can do this sort of thing. And isn't it funny too, thinking back, we can't promote this guy has no personality, this guy won't do anything, he won't take any chances. People were always giving out, he won't fight TJ Dillashaw up at 135. The same guy just fought like a world champion Muay Thai guy who, I don't really know much about, but anyone I speak to who knows about that part of the world and that part of combat sports, they all say Rodtang is very, very, very good. And I think anyone who, has watched fights in their life can see the first round and realise that Rodtang was very, very good and hits very, very hard. It's funny how at 35 years of age he's willing to do that, but seemingly he wasn't willing to fight TJ Dillashaw 5 years ago or whatever it might have been. That to me is, weird. and it's more weird on the other side of it, the Demetrius Johnson side. So I don't know, take that for what it's worth. But he said all the time at that stage he was willing to fight those guys as long as they paid him the money. ONE FC are paying him the money, and he's fighting for them, and he's fighting those cool, fun fights. Like, imagine if he was fighting cool, fun fights in the UFC and they were paying him the money. The problem is the UFC paying him the money. The UFC did a great job of talking up Demetrius Johnson not wanting to fight and not wanting to fight TJ Dillashaw and all of this. But at the end, if that was happening today and he was like, I want to fight, but I want more money, I feel like the UFC MMA fans would be more sympathetic to that plight, because I feel like we all have become more sympathetic to that plight over the last few years. Now, John Jones mightn't have done much to help that, but it just feels like Demetrius Johnson was maybe a little bit ahead of his time in that one. And if we think about it and go back and rethink, I think maybe we can come up with something different. Look, at the end of the day, it worked out well for the UFC. As Jack Slack said on Twitter there on Saturday night, they got the summer of Masvidal out of it. Demetrius Johnson got paid well over one championship, got a very, very good fighter, and Demetrius Johnson got to have some fun, whereas in the UFC wouldn't let him have any, and he wouldn't pay him either. So I have massive respect to Mighty Mouse. I hope he does a fight like this again. I hope ONE FC puts something on like this again, maybe 1 round grappling, 1 round MMA, 1 round grappling, 1 round MMA or something. I don't know who you'd get to do that. I'm sure someone in the comment section could throw a few names out there, but I would love to see it. I would love to see Demetrius Johnson back again in that sort of fight. So I really, really enjoyed it. The card overall, very, very good. And the reason I think it was very good is it was something different. And we need something different in MMA. We have fucking 50 UFC cards a year and another, 15, 20 Bellator cards, whatever it might be. And pretty much they're all the same in terms of, like, you have some very good fights, you have some okay fights, you have the very same production in all of them. They're all straight up MMA fights, some 3 rounds, some 5 rounds. The odd tournament by Bellator, nothing by the UFC, and that's it. Like, there isn't much variation, really, is there? Nothing like fun to get us out of our seat. Now, the fights themselves are fun, and it's a inherently brilliant and fun sport. But you get me, like, we need a little bit different. People who like MMA are generally people who like a bit of crack and like a bit of fun and like a bit of madness. Give us a bit of madness, give us a bit more madness and let us see it. But the one championship have given us that this weekend, and I want to see more out of it, to be honest. I enjoyed the 1X show, and yeah, I thought it was great. And also on that card, there was some straight up MMA fights as well. Angela Lee, I thought she looked fantastic, going in there beating Stamp in the main event, tapped her in the last couple of seconds of round 2. I thought her striking came on an awful lot as well. I thought it looked very, very good. And Adriano Moraes, Wakamatsu, myself and Ian did the preview here on Sherdog during the week. And I think we were both kind of saying he's very good offensively and defensively is an issue, but also we were talking about how good of a wrestler he is. And I was watching that fight, and I think we went to the third round, I think, and I remember thinking, like, why isn't he going for takedowns? Like, why? He's a very good wrestler. Why is he not going for takedowns? And in the first takedown he goes for, he gets submitted. So that's the reason he wasn't going for takedowns. But take nothing away from Moraes, that guy is a very, very good fighter. Demetrius Johnson will tell you that, and so will many others. And you know, I saw someone talking recently about none of the Bellator fighters would get anywhere near the none of the Bellator champions would get anywhere near the UFC champions. So I'll tell you what, there's a one championship champion that'll get damn near a few UFC champions. I know there might be more than one as well. So very, very fun card from one championship. The next thing I want to talk about here is Max Griffin versus Neil Magny in the UFC this weekend. And I think, look, to a lot of people it was maybe a fight of two halves even. You know, Max Griffin obviously won the first round, close second, and then Magny turned over a new leaf maybe in the third and ended up winning that. In my opinion, a 10-8, but that's beside the point. And Magny ended up winning the unanimous decision. But it was one of those fights, right, where I think the guy who lost will regret it for years and years and years. And it's not a fight where, you know, you make a mistake, like, and you put yourself, you know, you put your head in, you get guillotined, or you lose a decision, or, you know, you decide to wrestle when maybe you shouldn't have wrestled. Those things can happen, and those things, you know, those things are errors in fight or errors in calculation or things like that. But this was a little bit different to me, and it was the point exactly when Max Griffin knocked Neil Magny down, and then he let him back up. And now, the letting him back up bit wasn't too bad, but he let him off the hook when he did let him back up, because he was having a striking advantage at that stage. He obviously, you know, he was landing the power strikes. He knocked Neil Magny down with a big hard shot. But when he got back up, you could hear, I actually couldn't hear it, but the commentary said it, and I trust them in this anyway, not in much other, but they were saying his corner was telling him to take his time and pick his shots. Now, that is the right thing to do most of the time, right? And almost all of the time it's the right thing to do. I come on here all the time and I talk about fundamentals, the fundamentals of striking, the fundamentals of wrestling. And if you see all the great fighters down through the years, it's always with great fundamentals and intelligence and fight IQ that they achieve that, right? So that's the correct thing to do most of the time. But not in this situation. Not in this situation. You have to have that situational awareness. You have to know what's going on. And you have to know who you're fighting to. You're fighting Neil Magny. This is a guy who, unless you put him away, he will keep coming back. And he has great cardio. And he'll keep going into the third, fourth, fifth round if it needs to be. This is only 3 rounds, but you get me. Now, if this happened in the third round maybe, and he was a couple of rounds up or something like that, I would have said, okay, don't put yourself into that position. Absolutely no problem. Take your time. Do what's right for you. But in this position, Luke Thomas used the phrase a few years ago, and I always loved the phrase, and I didn't understand it for a while, but I think I do now. But he used the phrase, the proclivity for violence. And I think in that situation, you need to be violent. You need to be confident as well. And you need to get that finish. At that point, you need to get that finish. You cannot leave that behind you, because it's not just fighting Neil Magny. It's not just beating Neil Magny. It's for your place in the rankings. Like, what's Neil Magny? I don't know, 10 or 12 or maybe a little bit higher in the UFC rankings. Max Griffin, if I'm correct, is not ranked. So you win that fight and automatically, immediately, you're ranked, right? And then we're talking about fights against Sean Brady. You know, then we're talking about fights against Michael Chiesa and people like that. And you win one of them, and where are you then? You know, you could be up with Colby, you could be up towards the championship winning 2 or 3 fights. And that's the reality of it. And after that loss, he's now unranked and he could get anyone. You know, he could get some up-and-comer who's very, very good, who'll beat him and get past him. Or he could get someone who is, you know, new to the UFC, or he could get someone who's been in the UFC for years and it's not going to do anything for him. It might take 2 or 3 wins again before he gets close to anyone who's in the rankings. And it might never happen. Let's be realistic. It might never, ever happen for him. And that moment, honestly, and I hope it's not, because I like Max Griffin. I think he's a very, very good fighter, and I enjoy watching him. But that, honestly, could be a pivotal moment in his career. That could be a moment he looks back on when he's 50 or 60 or 70, and he's talking about his career, and he was thinking, if I won that fight, I had him. I had him beat. I had him beat. I knocked him down. He was out of it. If I'd landed one more shot, he was gone, and I would have been a champion. You know? And now, okay, would he be a champion? Probably not. But you get what I mean. It just felt like one of those moments. I said it live. I said this before, so this isn't being a general after the battle or anything like that. I said this the second he let him back up, and for the next minute or so when he let him off the hook a little bit. I just feel like it was such a grave error that, look, MMA is all about, as I said earlier on, fundamentally, it's all about being a good fighter. It's all about being a smart fighter. But you also have to take it. You have to take it by the scruff of the neck. There's no fighter in the history of MMA who's been a top fighter who hasn't taken it. Like, John Jones. Look what he did against Shogun in that title fight. And, you know, it was in a title fight because Jones quickly got to a title fight, if you get me. But if you look at, you know, Habib down through the years, he kind of took it against everyone, let's be honest. But look at McGregor versus Mendez, or McGregor versus Holloway, or, you know, we could see it from Hamzat here against Gilbert Burns in the next couple of weeks. It is a thing you need to do. You need to take that next step. You need to beat that guy and put yourself in that position. And when the opportunity like that arises, when it comes right in front of you, you have to take it. And unfortunately for Max Griffin, he was not able to take it. He didn't take it. And to me, that's something he will regret and regret and regret for a long time, unless he gets back into that position, you know, unless he wins a few fights and let's say they give him Michael Chiesa and he beats Michael Chiesa, well, maybe then no. But it's not that easy. I'm telling you, lads, it's not that easy to get back into that position. And I think, look, if he learns from it and he gets there again, I think it will be different. But it was sick. It's saddening to see, you know, for a guy. And you know, I like Neil Magny as well. I'd no horse on that one. I don't think I had any of my bets for the week or anything, and I don't think so. So yeah, it wasn't like I was favouring anyone or anything, but it was just to see a guy reach his potential and to see him be one kind of step away from it and not do it. You know, maybe people disagree with me. Maybe I'm overplaying it, but I don't know. It was just because it was Neil Magny as well. Because it was Neil Magny, you just knew that he's going to come back. He is going to come back unless you do it here and now. And he wasn't able to do it, unfortunately. Right. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is a thing I've talked about a good bit over the last week or so over on Severe. I actually have a Patreon podcast coming out with my good friend Spencer Kite and Harry Powell as well over the next week or so. But card placement, I think, is a big thing in the UFC these days, and it's very interesting to me how kind of willy-nilly they are placing these cards these days. And I think the weekend really showed that a lot, you know, and Paul Craig as well the week before over in London. Like, Paul Craig literally buried in the prelims. That was one of those ones that's hard to believe, you know. It's hard to believe. This guy is ranked 13 or 14, maybe even a little bit higher in the light heavyweight division. He's beaten 2 of the last 3 UFC Fight Night headliners before that, at that time. Or 2 of the last 4 or something like that. Jamal Hill and the other lad whose name I can never remember. And he was thrown in the middle of the prelims, and he was almost an afterthought for the UFC. And even afterwards, Dana White was asked about him, and he was like, oh yeah, look, we'll get another fight for Paul Craig or whatever. When Paul Craig is a ranked guy who just keeps finishing everyone. He's not like he's just decisioning guys. He's finishing all of these lads. He should be higher up, and he should have a higher placement in the card. But as well, you look at last Saturday night, and you see Kai Kara France versus Askar Askarov. By anyone's estimation, the number one contender fight in that division, with the two lads fighting for the title if they are. And if they aren't, absolutely the number one contender fight. Askar Askarov ranked like number 3 or 4 or something, and Kai Kara France had a good win streak, ranked number 6 or 7 or something like that. So on the way up. And obviously Askar Askarov won. But also, because there was a few fights like that, and look, the Dawkins Blades fight was a little bit like that, although I think we all kind of know in that one it was more of a middling heavyweight fight than anything else. Like I don't think anyone was fooling themselves with that. There was the Nicolau fight, there was also the Firo fight against Jennifer Maia, which turned out to be a very fun fight. But I think anyone looking at the card coming in, and I said this in the preview here, and I think more than me said it as well, so it's not like I'm breaking any ground or anything, but this needed 5 rounds, Askar Askarov versus Kai Kara France needed 5 rounds. We said that coming in, and we probably said that afterwards as well. If that had another 2 rounds, how much better would it be, and how much of a classic would we have gotten? Whereas a heavyweight fight, look, I think it was going to, you could say it for all heavyweight fights, but I think it was going to finish early anyway. And it didn't need it. Like, what are Chris Dawkins or Curtis Blades going to gain from a heavyweight fight at this stage anyway? And it's not like they're big names. It's not like, it's just a heavyweight fight is their own, like, that's the only reason I can see they put it there. It's a heavyweight fight, and they're top ranked heavyweights. But like, do people get drawn to just top ranked heavyweights anymore? Like, is that a thing? Look, we have lived for years and years and years with Ryan Nelson and Czech Congo and Ben Rothwell and others headlining cards, and it's like, can we move past that a little bit? Like, can we get a little bit more intelligent with card? Like, especially the ones in the UFC Apex. Now I know it was in Columbus the last day, and there was a crowd there and everything, but like, it wasn't, none of those two guys were like homegrown Columbus or Ohio guys or anything like that. Like, even if they put Matt Brown in the main event, I would have maybe understood it a little bit more, even though I think both him and Barberina are unranked, if I'm not mistaken. But at least then, you have the hometown guy, he's a big name and everything like that. I would have had little problem with that, honestly. But to put that main event as the main event when you have a fight so calling out for the main event slot, I just think, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird when you don't have a good alternative, because the heavyweight fight wasn't a good alternative. It really wasn't. Like, if it was Ciel Gane against Blades, or Ciel Gane against Dawkins, or maybe Stipe, or obviously John Jones would be on a pay-per-view card. But if it was any of them guys, I wouldn't have said anything. Or Derek Lewis even. But you don't have that name value. You don't have that star there. Yet you choose to put it there just because it's a heavyweight fight. Now, you don't have the star in the Askarov Kara France fight either, but let's create a star. Let's create a main event star. Imagine that fight over 5 rounds in the main event. People would have been waxing lyrical about it. They would have been talking about it all the time. It would have been one of the fights of the year. It was a great fight. Really, really fun fight. Kai Kara France putting on an unbelievable performance against such a tough opponent. I almost called him Peter Yan there, but Askar Askarov fighting very well as well, and he'll be back. I know it's maddening. Honestly, it's maddening, and I'm sure it's maddening to a lot of people listening in as well who are hardcore MMA fans, and on Sherdog, that's the right place to get them. And look, we all understand the reasons, we all understand why the UFC are doing it. I suppose from like it's a heavyweight fight point of view, and the flyweights are not going to draw a point of view, but like, let's get past that. Come on, there was 18,000 people there the last day. I saw Damon Martin put it up about the biggest gate and all of that. You tell me those people who are ravenous for events, who are ravenous to get out the house after 2 years being stuck inside, they wouldn't have gone anyway, even if Askar Askarov versus Kai Kara France is the main event, and they would have enjoyed it more. Baller dash, absolute baller dash. Come on, it's 2022. We need to move past this rubbish and get the right fights in the main event at the right time. And look, the card placement itself as well. It's a longer, it's a longer discussion for another day. But I think they could do a better job with that as well. I understand they have to put what they see anyway as big fights in each of the portions to get people to tune in. I've no problem with that, but get the best fights at the top. That's the least you should be doing, right? Okay. Last thing I want to talk about here is a little bit of Irish MMA. There was a few prospects fighting over the weekend. Kenny Mokhonoana, who is, if anyone knows Franz Malambo, he's Franz Malambo's brother. He had a win, I think it was over in UAE Warriors. He is one of, I think he's 3-0 now as a pro. You'll find out in Sherdog.com. I'm sure John will have it up here on the graphic. He's a very, very good prospect and want to definitely keep an eye on. Unfortunately, John Mitchell then lost the next night on the UAE Warriors card. He's still a top prospect as well, though. He's been training out with Munir Lazez and those lads for the last couple of years, and he got caught in the guillotine, just put his head in the wrong place and got caught. But the main attraction for Irish MMA this weekend, also we had Norman Park fighting over in kind of a boxing match over in Poland. Norman's been doing a lot of that for the last few years. He's doing great for himself. But Will Fleury, this is a guy you need to be keeping an eye on, because he's a guy I always thought was a good fighter, and he might be able to get to like a certain level, and it'd take a lot of improvement for him to kind of move past that. He obviously did well in Bellator, and we've always seen improvements out of Will throughout his career. He's gotten a bit better. But for me, and maybe I haven't said it, maybe it's my Irish bias, and I wouldn't say it, he never took that leap. You know, he never kind of got to that next level. And there's lots of fighters like that, you know. Even Mark Casey, we saw it at the weekend, maybe a little bit like that even. Oh God, if something goes flying here. God almighty. Anyway, that's probably a good shock video. You got out of me. Anyway, back to Will Fleury. Will Fleury, look, I'm in shock here, lads. I'm in shock. I have a big sign up there and it just fell down and went flying. But anyway, so Will Fleury, in this fight at the weekend against Tarek Suleiman for the middleweight title over in UAE Warriors, he took a massive leap forward. He took a huge leap forward in his career. His wrestling has always been good. His grappling has always been good, and it was good here again on Saturday evening. But his striking to me looks so good, fighting out of the southpaw position. He said afterwards as well he came in with a few injuries to the ankle, and he said he broke his hand as well, so maybe that's why he was fighting out of the southpaw position. But his jab, he's straight down through the middle were lovely. And I talked earlier about fundamentals. Will Fleury looked a really good fundamental fighter in this, and that's what you need to be. And I've never seen him look as comfortable in there before. And I think, what was that, his 12th or 13th fight? I've probably seen all of them. I've seen a couple of them live even in person. But it was a real top performance. And the middleweight division worldwide isn't that strong. And when you see a good fighter coming through like this, who has, you know, a good amount of fights and a good amount of experience, I think you need to take note. So I think the UFC could come calling very soon, maybe one or two more fights. Maybe he mightn't even need that. And I think he'd do a good job in the UFC. As I said, the middleweight division not as strong, and I think he could go in there and win a few fights if he improves the way he's improved from the last fight to this fight, and even the few fights before. There's no ceiling now for Will Fleury. I always had a ceiling on. Maybe I didn't have a ceiling on him, but you know, you look at a guy and you see his fights and you're thinking, right, it'll take a lot. But now it won't take a lot. You know, okay, it'll still take a lot if you want to become world champion. But he's a very, very good prospect, and to me, he's gone from a level, as a good prospect to this level of a prospect now after the weekend, and definitely a guy, if you're across the pond or wherever you are in the world, to keep an eye on as another Irish MMA prospect coming through. So, right, I will leave it at that. I go over and try to clean up whatever broke up over there earlier on. Thanks to John Brannigan and all the team over at Sherdog.com for all the help. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see everyone next time.